Welcome to Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Brought to you by our title sponsor, Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Come along with us as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. We have partnered with Mountain Tough Fitness Lab to help get you in shape and mentally stronger. Whether you're a veteran hunter or just starting out, the Mountain Tough app will take you to the next level. We personally train using the Mountain Tough programs, and we believe in it so much that we want to give you 6 weeks for free using code SHEEPBC. That's SHEEPBC. Check out Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. You won't be disappointed. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Frontiersman Gear. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Frontiersman Gear, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems. Well, gentlemen, we have a very special episode of Talk is Sheep. We have the two primaries of Bailey and Landrus. So we've got Brian Bailey, Glen Landrus on the podcast, Talk is Sheep today. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. It's absolutely a pleasure to put this together.
Well, thank you. Yep, absolutely. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
So, Brian, you spend a lot of time on the road, and I think a lot of the time on the road is for the guiding and hunting business. But you have a little R&R time down south there, or what's going on with you coming to us from the hotel room?
There the other night, my wife and I got a little time off of work, so decided to go from the 50 degrees and rainy western Washington down to Arizona here in Maricopa. So this morning it was about 98 degrees when we woke up, and it's reached about 104. Supposed to top out about 110 today, and just get a little sunshine in.
That sounds pretty reasonable. Sounds like a good plan, and I think Mr. Landrus is thinking about some R&R as well. I think that every time we get towards the middle of June, he starts getting a little happier and a little bit flightier. So what's going on with the school, and what's going on with you, Glenn?
Yeah, wrapping up the school year tomorrow is our last day, so really looking forward to an exciting summer. Some great weather, relaxation, maybe getting out and starting to locate some rams for our fall hunts.
Right on. So I think in the past, Glenn, you've taken off in the summertime and you've gone out and hung out in Canada, and I think you're pretty close to the Olmsteads up there and a few other great outfitters. And are you coming up this north way this time of year, or what's the plan for 24?
Yeah, I'm hoping to head up. I spent about 3 weeks up in the Yukon last year just hanging out. Like you said, I'm a teacher, so summer's off, and kind of between some intense scouting trips, I ran up and hung out before the season opened up there with Spencer and Amanda Wallace and their new outfit. So I think the last time we were on, you were wanting me to leak out the new outfit that traded hands, and that's definitely not anything new now, so I didn't say it then. But yeah, Spencer and Amanda Wallace purchased Reynolds Outfitting from Dan Reynolds, and I've hunted up there 4 times and didn't have anything going in the middle of the summer last year, so I went and hung out with them, and I'm hoping to do the same again. They just had a little girl during the off season, so I want to get up and meet her and definitely unplug and enjoy some of your beautiful northern Canadian Rockies.
Yeah, right on. All right, do you have any sheep hunts booked for this year, or do you have anything on the books coming up, or what's going on with that?
For us or with clients?
No, specifically for you. Do you have a hunt planned for 2024 or 25?
I'm working on an ibex hunt in Pakistan. My good buddy here about a year and a half ago, when he happened to be in Pakistan, and we were in-reaching. He was with a client, and we were in-reaching one day when they were hunting Sind ibex. And I personally believe Sind ibex are just the most beautiful ibex in the world. So they're at the top of my capper list. So via in-reach one night, it was, let's do that. Let's hunt them. Okay. All right, let's book a hunt at Sheep Show. Sounds good. And then the next day, he was back in his cell service and sent me a picture of him and the client and 2 beautiful Sind ibex, one of which fell to Brian. So now he's not quite as motivated to go again, but he's helping me put together a hunt. I'm hoping to go in December this year.
Awesome. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
Bryan, we go ahead.
Yeah, Pakistan is a wonderful place to hunt, and like I say, when you put an animal out in front of me and I have a gun in my hand, I really don't have any self-control, so I try not to get into those situations. But when it happens, usually something ends up dead on the ground.
That's awesome. So we talked about Glen's plans here. What do you got on the books? Do you have any? Obviously, you're really busy with the outfitting business. You got anything on the books for yourself in the next 6 months?
Yeah, this 2024 seems to be busy for us, just like the prior years. Personally, I have a woodland caribou hunt up in Newfoundland there scheduled for late September. My big thing I have this year personally is my daughter is getting married in early mid-October. So I was told strict instructions from the wife and family. I can't have any hunts going on in October. So for once that slate is clean there for that month. But after than that, have just clients, just traveling with clients, doing some bighorn hunts and then some international hunts also.
Very cool. Where's your woodland caribou hunt? Or when is it? Sorry.
I want to say it's like September 14th through like October 2nd, something to that effect.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Looking forward.
We're going to talk lots of. Yeah, that's awesome, Bryan. We're going to talk lots of hunting stories here, but we got Bailey and Landrus, so we got the two primaries on here. First of all, I want to just try to figure out, like, if Bailey's at the front of the name, is he the most important, or has he got like the biggest shareholding, or the most successful, or how does that work? Like, how do you figure out whose name went first?
All the above. The most prestigious. Yeah, all the above. You're right. You nailed it, Kyle.
So how did this dynamic duo get together? So kick off that, Bryan, for us on how you guys met, and then how you built this business and got into the outfitting business together.
Well, I think the first time Glen and I met, after a few phone calls online, was back in 98 at the Washington, at that time, Fanaz sheep show here. Glen and I had talked a few different times on the phone because I ended up with a couple sheep tags, one in Washington in 87 and then another one in 97, another in 98. And so he invited me there to our banquet. And from there, just developed a great relationship. Through my Oregon Bighorn tag, I met up with a gentleman down there that asked me to be part of his guiding crew, Elvin Hawkins with Spot Country Outfitters down there. It's kind of a old name, a blast from the past, but I got on with him and started guiding hunts with him in 99 and throughout. And then just being invited onto the board of Washington Wild Sheep, developing those friendships with Glen and some of those other guys. And then when Elvin in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, decided to get out of the business more and more, I jumped over with Glen and who he was guiding with. From there, I had a good relationship, always hung out. Loved hunting with him and the other guys. And when things stopped being fun for who we were guiding for, it was only natural that Glen and I would go out on our own. So from there, in 2018, I guess, the Bailey and Landrus Hunting Company was formed, and it's been a great time ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good recap. There's a couple things that he kind of glossed over that I think are worth pointing out. First was a couple of sheep tags that I acquired, or however he described it. In 1997, he won the very first state raffle that Washington ever had for California Bighorns. And after that fall, I called him, to see how his hunt went on behalf of Washington Fanaz, as he was alluding to. And then the very next year, he won the Oregon State Bighorn raffle. And combined, I think you spent what, $120 to win those two, something like that. Does that sound right?
I was into both of them for $80, $30 in tickets for Washington and $50 in Oregon.
So yeah, he's got a whole laundry list of lucky raffle wins like that. So don't ever enter any kind of a drawing or a raffle in opposition to him, because you're going to lose. But he is a great guy to apply with for a limited entry hunting opportunity.
So Bryan, you do a lot of these international hunts, and I know Bailey and Landrus as, if somebody's looking for a big sheep, they pick up the phone and call you guys, and you do a lot of sheep work and do a great job of it. Got a great reputation in the industry. But a lot of this international stuff, are you doing under the Bailey and Landrus name as well, or is that stuff that you're doing on your own, or how does that work? You talked about your ibex hunt there in Pakistan, so just bring us up to speed on how the international side of things works, and if you're doing that with the Bailey and Landrus.
That's a good question, Kyle. A little bit of it that way. We don't make ourselves, or we don't consider ourselves booking agents that way. I've been lucky enough through owning my own business here for quite a few years and growing up in a family business to begin with, to get time off. A great wife that lets me have that to chase after my own passions. So I've done a lot of traveling, if for myself, hunting, traveling, and also with other clients. Bailey and Landrus Hunting Company, one of the things we always say is that we have some of the best and greatest clients in the hunting world, and we really do. And so in that aspect, through my own travels and through my own hunts internationally, I've developed a set of skills there and trust people that I would refer to other clients. And if our clients want me to go along, I'll definitely, travel with them, and willing to travel with them if it fits into my schedule. But as in a booking agent, we really haven't stepped over into that aspect of it. Maybe when Glen there decides to retire from his teaching, or I retire from the grocery business, we'll pick up a little bit more than that. But at this state in our business, I'd say we just are more to travel with a client than be the booking agent part of it. I don't know if that answers the question very well, but
yeah, no, it's really helpful, and I know you do a lot of stuff internationally for yourself, and then going along with clients as well. And I've noticed too, I've had the opportunity to meet through Sheep Week. I've hung out with you guys a little bit, and I agree, your clients are fantastic. You guys always have, you guys are the cool kids that people are kind of trailing around, hanging out with, and a real good group of people that hang around you. You guys got some really cool guides that work for you as well, and got to know them over the years, and so it's pretty cool. Maybe talk about some of the sheep work that you do. I know that somebody's drawing a Washington tag. The first call they're making is probably to you guys, but you guys don't work exclusively in Washington State either. So just touch, and it's a little bit different for me too. I don't quite understand the U.S. system. It's a bit different than up here in Canada. Guides have concessions here in Canada, and they're pretty restrictive and that sort of thing. So it's a little different in the U.S. So maybe Glen or Bryan, if either of you could touch a little bit on how that works and some of the work that you've been doing for these tags.
Yeah, I'll get us started, and then Bryan, if you need to clean up, you can. Yeah, for the most part, we're based in Washington. Our target customers are, our auction tag, which is for California Bighorns, and then we've got a few raffle opportunities for both California Bighorns and Rocky Mountain Bighorns here in Washington State. So that's really our bread and butter. Yeah, Brian's made a great name for himself just with all of his connections internationally. So it's a natural progression for someone to, go on a bighorn hunt with us or something, and then want to go do something else and have that network available to help folks out with that. Yeah, we've done a couple of hunts, and it's really where other clients of ours, for example, last couple of years picked up tags in Nebraska, so we went down and helped them there. I don't know, I guess it was, 3 or 4 years ago, one of our hunters bought Oregon, and we weren't the outfitter for it. We just went along with them, and did that hunt with Sheep Mountain Outfitters, and they work in Idaho as well too. So, we kind of just have some strong relationships in the industry, and we're able to kind of follow some of our guys around as they wish. So, I mean, we've from New Mexico to Alaska, and wherever else internationally, Nebraska, all the above, it kind of in different capacities. So the nice thing is Bryan and I both have full-time careers that pay the bills, and so I mean, we've been on as many free sheep hunts as we have guided hunts or outfitted hunts or what accompanying hunts or anything like that. So and we just you led off with the question about how we got started, and Bryan kind of explained how we became friends, and how we really decided to go into business together. Is we both have a real strong passion for mountain hunting and hunting bighorn sheep, and then we've also both been involved with, at the time we got started, with Washington FNAWS. We're both still on the board with Washington Wild Sheep Foundation now. Of course, I serve on the national board. And so we hear that a lot from our clients. In fact, we hunted with a gentleman a year and a half ago, his first sheep hunt, and he did a little write-up that was in Wild Sheep, and it was really complimentary for him to write about how we were talking about the health of the herds and lamb recruitment, disease issues, things like that. So Bryan and I overlap with our passion for wild sheep and mountain hunting, and the related conservation and health. We're not just in it to go notch a tag and move on to the next.
Bryan, do you want to add to that in any capacity?
I think Glen hit it right on the head there. I always say when talking to a client, we aren't out there just to kill a ram. We're out there to kill the right ram. A lot of our units we're in here in Washington, we're in year after year, especially Glen up there with the Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep there, right? They're in his backyard, and he catalogs those rams year after year, and we know the right ram to kill in there. Sometimes it's not the biggest ram scoring wise, but it's the right ram to kill. A ram that Glen alluded to there with the article was a ram that we had watched for 4 years, the oldest ram that we knew in the unit, and when we were hired for that hunt, we knew that was our target ram. So it matters to us. Like you said, we're not out there just to notch a tag and move on. We're there for the whole experience, and we want our client to have the best experience also.
Do you guys ever run into issues where you have a client that you picked a mature ram, an old ram that that's the one that you should be hunting, but maybe there's a sexy ram that stands out to the client, maybe a younger ram, and wants to take that? You ever run into that in the mountain where you guys are there's debate over what a ram you're going to take? And I've always wondered if you've struggled with if that's something that an outfitter or guide struggles with when I think it's more pronounced in thin horns probably, but I'm just wondering if you guys have had issues with that.
Well, there's a story that popped into my mind as you started to ask that question. And first of all, we never tell the client that's the ram to kill. But like Bryan was talking about, we said, hey, here's a ram we've been watching for 4 years. We think he's 10 years old. He's it's the right time. But we'll show him, we'll go around and look at some sheep and go find some rams and let them make the call. But one is actually the opposite of what you're asking, Kyle, and that is about 2.5 years ago, I think it was, Brian, when we had an auction hunter, and of all the negative press that, not all, but some of the negative press that auction hunters get, and we put them on a great group of rams, and in the end, the hunter said, "That's the one I want," and he was an 11-year-old California Bighorn, and he said, and I'll never forget this, he said, I killed the right ram. He was the third biggest in the group, but there was never any doubt. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Doug. That was hunting with Doug Thayer, and he had no hesitation to let those other two go. And it was exactly what you said. There was a 6-year-old, 7-year-old that was just a beauty, and it wasn't his time. And Doug didn't hesitate one bit. He said, "I want the old one." So it was the opposite.
Do you gentlemen find that where most of those auction buyers have that sort of ethos that they're looking for an old mature ram, that's really important, or they're, or I guess there's the whole, the 700 club, and there's rams that have to meet a criteria for some guys too, because they've got some boxes to tick as well. So how often do you run into that scenario where like, no, I need to get a 170, I need a 180. They got a number that they're going to hit, and they're not going to budge until they get there.
Well, that happens. But again, and sorry to budge in, but I had this conversation a year and a half ago with our client, Lewis Breland, that had the Washington tag. And we were actually looking for the ram that Doug let go. And he was kind of hard to find. I think our crew was 28 days into it, and I was talking to Lewis, and then we finally turned him up, and let Lewis know, and he's like, "Well, how's it?" And we turned up another doozy, and he said, "How old are they?" And I said, "Well, the first one that we found, we think is 10, and the younger one's probably 8." And he said, "No, I want the 10-year-old." Now, on the numbers side of it, that 10-year-old grossed just an eighth under 184, so that's a pretty good California Bighorn. But yeah, I mean, we get stuck playing the numbers game too. But yeah, I mean, it's surprising. These guys care about, and gals, about finding a good old ram. Absolutely.
Right on. So on the conservation side, I've got so much respect for both you guys. Glen, we've worked closely together in the conservation realm for a few years now, and obviously spoken on this podcast before about the respect I have for you, and as well, Brian, all that you do for Washington wild sheep and beyond too. So, I'm not limited to Washington, but you do so much great work there. Obviously conservation and conservation ethos is important to you. A lot of great work's been done through ION, the Idaho, Oregon, Nevada initiative, and there's been a ton of work done in the on the Snake River, and you guys do Hell's Canyon. What are you seeing for sheep? We're seeing some tremendous sheep come out of Washington State. What is it? You guys have your finger on the pulse of rams there. What is the trajectory? I guess numbers wise, and then the quality of rams that are being taken in the state.
Brian, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, you probably should.
Well, it's really good. I mean, okay, I'll get it started. This greater Hell's Canyon area, and I said this on stage in Reno in January. In any of our lifetimes, there's not been more sheep. And we were MOV free for about 4 or 5 years in this kind of core Hell's Canyon area. And that changed this winter. And there was a little episode primarily on the Idaho side, but it seems to be pretty isolated. So we'll hope. I haven't talked to a bio for about a month, and we should have lots of lambs on the ground, and it'd be too early to tell if there's any ramifications of that spreading, but it's definitely possible. I mean, there's enough radio collared sheep in the canyon that track these sheep can cover a lot of different country. And I mean, one of the rams that we were chasing a couple years ago with one of our hunters. Brian happened to be in, where were you at, in Spain or Kyrgyzstan or both or something like that. Well, we were trying to keep track of him, and that ram was in, or where were you?
Kyrgyzstan, I believe, at that point in time.
Yeah. And then, that ram was in 3 different game management units, over that time while we were waiting for those guys to get back stateside. So they can move and that can spread around. So it's good. Lamb recruitment's been really good. I mean, they've been taking some really big rams, some on all sides, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington right here in Hell's Canyon. I just hope that this little episode is not something severe and we can, get back. But the lamb recruitment's been really good. I'm excited to get out. I've been just really busy at work and with WSF stuff. I haven't been out to look at any young lambs yet, but it's at the top of my list. But we have just, some great up and coming rams. That's for sure.
Brian, you want to talk a little bit about quality of rams that you guys are seeing over the year? If you've seen a trend, or we've seen some bigger numbers historically.
Well, in our California Bighorn herds, I think we're pretty solid as of right now, as in numbers. We have had some die-offs in the past 10 years or so in our Yakima Reach area, or Umtanum and Sela Butte and Quillamine, and some of those herds have definitely had some hotness in them, low lamb recruitment in that, but that seems to have passed. So it seems like lamb recruitment in most of those units are pretty good. Our jewels, if you want to say, Chelan Butte and Spokane, those 2 units seem to be just clicking right along. Good lamb recruitment, good ram numbers all the way around. Several of those units, especially the Spokane, seems to have had some burns in it coming up off of the highway here the last 5 years pretty regularly. And that's been great new growth there for those sheep that hang in those canyons there. So, the ram numbers look really good. Base sizes look really good. Lots of rams to choose from. And it, as in a guiding aspect of it, it's good. You have a lot to look through, but also it's kind of hard because it is a lot to look through. And then, you end up picking one out, and then you have to try to go back a few months later and find him. Can be quite challenging for us and the crew. But our California Bighorn herds are definitely on the stronger side as of right now. So it's all about, for the Washington Fish and Game, I think also a lot of it is about giving opportunities to hunters. So they have been increasing some of those tag numbers throughout the years, which the downside of that is, of course, then you take the cream of the crop, right? You have so many tags in there, so many general tags along with your raffle and auction tags, that it's hard to get a ram to the age class that you need. So luckily for our Spokane unit, our top unit, for our auction hunters and those draw tag guys, there's lots of rams to choose from, and we get a good age class ram in there. So it's exciting. It's exciting to go in there and see what you can dig out year after year.
So you guys would start that now. You're starting to scout. And Glenn, you mentioned you're going to get out in the field now and start getting glass on sheep and stuff like that. So you guys are watching them all year, and then the season opens. You kind of have some rams in mind that you want to go after.
Yeah, exactly. And I know a couple of our guys have been out. We've got some guys that live in different parts of the state where the herds are close to them. So yeah, we just spend a lot of time out watching them. So it's a great time of year.
Right on. Let's talk a little bit about that passion. So I know, Glenn, I think your first experience, you won a raffle, or you drew a tag, and then I know we just talked about right, and then we just heard what bloody Bailey, how freaking lucky he is. Let's touch a little bit, and maybe Brian, if you can, kick that off for us. Is your drive and determination. You're obviously you're a mountain hunter. You've been a sheep hunter, but now you're done a lot of the international stuff. Let's just talk about kind of that drive and passion and sort of what gets you up in the morning when it comes to the mountain hunting stuff.
Yeah, that first sheep tag that I won there in Washington was really a neat experience. It was in our California units, of course, and it was I decided to hunt the unit that was closest to me. Had a lot of rams in it. A 2-hour drive. I could get into that unit, so I spent a lot of weekends there, coming up to the hunt, just looking at sheep, learning the sheep, learning habits. Trying to figure out how to score them wasn't the biggest aspect of it. Just to age them and try to pick out the right ram. And of course, opening day, I ended up tipping over a pretty nice 9-year-old 158 class Cali. And after that, it was just, I was hooked. As soon as I put my hands on that ram, it was like, okay, how do I do more of this? Right. And then, fast forward to the next year and I see Oregon's got this raffle out there. And so I throw a few more dollars into that and that, lightning strikes. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Let's go do this thing again. And I was lucky enough to be able to hunt Rocky Mountain bighorns there down out of Oregon. And, through some help with the game department down there, kind of pointing me in the right directions. And I alluded to Elvin Hawkins, and, he called me up wanting to guide me. And, I was a 35-year-old kid with a new family and no extra money. And, but he was nice enough to point me a few different directions. And that was really a neat wilderness experience where my wife and I could take our horses down there and ride the trails and learn the country. And, I ended up killing a really nice ram down there. And from then I've been just, as Glenn says, from that point on, I've been poor, because it's not if I go on another hunt, it's when I went on another hunt. So, but as I got more into the sheep world of it and talking to other people, I also realized that, that luck doesn't happen every year. And so if I wanted to get more involved with it, I had to get into the conservation side of it. Glenn was nice enough to invite me into, the Washington Fanaz group and show me that aspect and yeah, to give back, right? Because if hunters don't give back, nobody else will. And then also development into the guiding aspect of it also is another way to be involved year after year with these sheep. And, that was a big part of my passion. Just being up in the mountains. The mountains have always been an allure to me. Love the backpacking part of it and just getting away from the rat race of every day. And from that, I took my first international trip in 2005. I went to Kyrgyzstan and hunted. I hunted mid-Asian ibex there through Profi Hunt. And Vladimir Kezhnikov was my interpreter there. And after that, it was like, oh my God, there's so much world to hunt, so many different mountains, so many cool experiences really to go after that. I tried to fit one of those into my schedule every 2 years, maybe every 3 years. And that mountain passion, that mountain game really just kind of drove me. It drove me to be in better shape. It drove me to be, that carrot at the end of the stick just kind of continued on with my passion to drive. And I like checking those boxes. I like having a reason to be out in the mountains, whether it's scouting for us, for a client, for, the next ram, or just to be out there to unplug.
Right on. So you talk about the international stuff, and I've talked a little bit to, one of our, I guess, friends, colleagues, acquaintances is Daryl Hosker, and Daryl does a lot of international hunting. And, he said for him, a lot of it is trying to get people to do some of these international hunts because they're pretty darn affordable. Like when you compare, trying to buy a sheep tag and guided sheep hunt, or you go do ibex, or, in some of these places, it's a pretty reasonable thing. So that, he's really big on a lot of these European hunts. And is it as good as sheep hunting? Is it better? Even Outad, like, I know Daryl's told me, like, Outad is, Outad can be even as good as a sheep hunt. It's just, it's right there too. So, do you find it as rewarding, as exciting, or is it just, if you had the choice of that or going sheep hunting in North America, what would you choose?
Oh gosh, there's nothing better than being in North America and being on a sheep hunt. I mean, truly that is where my passion lies, and my heart is tipping over, or watching somebody tip over a great big Rocky Mountain bighorn. There's nothing better. And I'll say, still, through all of these international hunts, one of the greatest hunts I feel in the world is a true backpack stone sheep hunt in British Columbia. I mean, just the terrain and the grunt that a lot of it takes, and it's just such a accomplishment when you and your guide are out there for 10 or 15 days trying to get one of these elusive rams on the ground. I mean, there's been a lot of hunts that people never even see a legal ram, or a ram for that part of it, um, but the international stuff is so affordable a lot of times, right? As our costs of North American sheep have went up and up. And I've been lucky enough to be able to get into it in the early 2000s, where some of those doll sheep hunts and stone sheep hunts were a little more affordable. I looked to other stuff. I really like that aspect of travel, seeing new cultures, experience new travel and people and that. And so that's a huge allure to me for the international hunts. And, um, a couple clients, or a client and I always joke with Glen there that, we're going to go hunt another chamois, right? These little critters that Europe just loves and are around the world. But in all reality, they're great to hunt. They're really affordable. They're in some of the steepest mountains of the world, and it's a great experience. It's a great hunt experience in the mountains. Um, and so, yeah, is it great as a doll or stone sheep? Maybe not, but still, the experience is still fantastic.
Bryan, when you look back at all the international stuff you've done, and I know you've done a ton of it over the years, I think you just did muskox in Greenland. I remember seeing something there, and I know you did a Mongolia ibex hunt. We talked about the Sindh hunt that you're on in Pakistan. What one really stands out for you? If you could go and I know that we talked about checking the box, and I want to jump into that in a minute here too, but if you could go and kind of go on another experience that you've already been on, what really stands out was like, wow, that was phenomenal?
Probably the hunt that's got the biggest wow factor is the Karakoram blue sheep hunt in Pakistan, in northern Pakistan. That hunt in itself is such an expedition. I did my first one in 2014, and I came back, and it was just I still am in awe from it, from that initial hunt. Right, it's just so much travel involved with it, and you're 3 days in before you even start hunting, and you start out of the village at over 10,000 feet elevation, and over the 3 days getting into base camp, you're up to 14,000 feet, and you're hunting over 14,000 feet, and you have, I think on my hunt, when I was hunting there myself, I had 23 different Sherpas with me, a couple government game officials there also, your interpreter, a chef. It was just so awe-inspiring to have have all those people there, and everybody's in the best mood ever, because they're out hunting, right? They're not in the village tending to their goats or their sheep. Just amazing experience there in Pakistan.
Very cool. Now, with in any of these international trips, and to me, Pakistan would kind of be fairly high on the list, but obviously there's some pretty serious security concerns in certain countries. Is there been a time when you've been on these trips where you're like, I'm not sure if I'm really happy being here, or like, and in retrospect too, right? Like sometimes there's the fear of the unknown, but then afterwards you're like, yeah, that was nothing. But do you ever look back and go, yeah, that was a little bit dodgy, and I don't know if I'd really be cool going back with that anytime soon?
I get asked that quite a bit. And when I started in on these hunts, my wife kind of was giving me that side eye on it. Like, are you sure this is safe? Are you going to come back to me, kind of a thing? But honestly, there has not been one trip I've been on that I felt unsafe. These companies that you book through and go through on these international trips, at least that I know of and would recommend to other people, want to take care of a client. They're there at the airports. They're there to transport you. They are not going to let you into a sketchy situation. So I have never felt uncomfortable there. And we're talking, 8-10 trips through Moscow and into Russia. I've been into Mongolia the last 4 years running. We're talking a couple, 3 trips to Kyrgyzstan, been into, Spain is a wonderful country to hunt. Turkey's a wonderful country to hunt. Of course, Canada, and that is no big deal, but I personally have not felt uncomfortable or in, what's the term you want to be, in jeopardy on any of those hunts. Now, in the field, climbing in the rocks or driving, getting to some of these places, going into Shimshal in Pakistan on the blue sheep hunt, that drive-in is worth the price of admission alone. I mean, that road is just crazy getting in there. Big drop-offs, and you're talking a village that didn't have a road into it until 2008. A village was really secluded, and those villagers, if they wanted to come out to the main highway, it was a 4-day walk for them. Sketchy part of it is more in the field on some of these hunts. Some of the tour hunts can be awful sketchy. Some of that, but those guys have hunted, these areas for centuries, right? They know how to take care of us Americans and Canadians, us hunters, because they don't want anything to happen to us, right? We're the guys paying the bills, and if that word gets out that something happens to a client, whether it's in town or in the field, that's definitely negative press that they don't want anything to do with.
Yeah, right on.
I want to add, I don't know if you can see this, Kyle, I'll hold it up to the screen, but what's that? Is that a Blandford Uriel, or what is that? Bailey, can you see it? And your two guides carrying AK-47s.
Yeah, that is in Pakistan, and that is a Punjab Uriel. That's a giant Punjab Uriel. Oh. But yeah, that was kind of fun. We had to coax them into that. But yeah, you do have some of that.
I always say, Stelter, he tries to coax me into these hunts because Brian's got brown eyes and I've got blue eyes. So I'm like, if I'm in the rig and we get pulled over by the Taliban, I'm gone.
On that note, Glenn, so you talked about the Sind Ibex and doing that hunt this December. is that kind of on the go-to list? You've ticked the FNAWS box more than once, and I think you're working on number 3 now. So I think you've got that safely covered. So you have a vision now of doing more international hunts moving forward, Glen?
Yeah, there's a few. There's a few of these ibex that I would like to get after. I mean, I still northern British Columbia and the Yukon. I would say it holds a special place in my heart, but it holds my heart. But some of these hunts up there are getting a little bit spendy, and I'm not getting in any better shape. When Bryan and I first started this, we were the young sheep guys, but we've been in it for more than 25 years, closer to 30 years, I guess. So I've told myself I want to get 3 or 4 different species of ibex, and just to get around. I've been fortunate enough to travel to Mongolia with one of our clients. I don't know, whatever that was, 7-8 years ago. And to the question you asked Bryan a few minutes ago about which one of those is special. I mean, walking up to an Altai Argali is breathtaking, and putting your hands on a 56 or 57 inch ram with 20-inch bases, giant bodies, but it's incredibly safe, as Bryan. I mean, I tell everybody in Mongolia that police don't even carry guns. It's an incredibly safe place to go. But I want to go. Sind is at the top of my list. And I'd love to go back to Mongolia and get an ibex, get one from there. Maybe Tajik or Kurg for one of those. And Bryan, you can step in and list the genus species on all of these, because he has them down. I always give him a hard time that he has to apply for a visa to come back to Washington. But maybe Turkey, a Bezoar, maybe Spain for a couple of those, something like that. So, but I need another gray sheep. So
awesome.
I always dream of that as well.
Bryan, with the hunting you've done internationally, and I know that you talked about ticking boxes, but let's put that aside. Is there a international hunt that's your dream hunt that you're like, yeah, I really want to get on that? Like, take away, like, just top of your Christmas list, you could have any hunt in worldwide. What would you go do?
Oh, worldwide? We talking still just mountain hunting, or there's
no restrictions. You get to pick.
There's definitely a few out there. Through my mountain hunting, for quite a few years, I've checked, like we say, checked a few boxes, right? Completed my FNAWS back in 12 when I drew a Nevada desert sheep tag, and went down and did it self-guided with one, actually one of our buddies, Andy there, that guides for us. And then just kind of, clicked off some of these international, was able to complete the Ovis World Slam. And then I got the Capra World 20 there last year. Like Glen says, the ibex hunts are really neat hunts throughout. Doesn't matter if they're, like you said, the Bezoar in Turkey, or the Mongolian 2 that you have, Tajikistan with the Pamir and the Bighorn. And I've done several of those hunts. If we're talking ibex, I really would like to have a alpine ibex out of Austria. Now is the only place that we can hunt them, just because I think they're really an iconic European trophy. When you think of mountain trophies out of Europe, I think of that alpine ibex. And I was lucky enough there last year to be on a couple of those hunts, and yeah, they're neat experiences. But any hunt in the world, that polar bear hunt up north, I have my eyes on it. I think the experience would be really breathtaking, to say the least. I just don't know any other hunt that could rival that. Another cool hunt that I would like to be on, I've been on several with clients, and that is a Altai ibex out of Mongolia. There's just a lot of them, and the country's so cool, and the travel's really cool, and once you kind of got, to me, when I hit Mongolia, I got to be in the right mindset, because you're going to sit your butt in a car for days to get to the hunt area. And from there, it's neat because most of the time you can use horses in hiking. So really a neat experience, and just beautiful country. Just to be able to experience that is really neat. Mm-hmm. So those are several on my to-do list and want list.
Very cool. Bryan, when somebody, obviously guys reach out to you and they talk to you about different hunts, and obviously some people have a species in mind, but, I hear guys talk about, I just want to go and do an international hunt. And, maybe they don't have a big budget and it's, need something a bit affordable. What's kind of your go-to for someone that approaches you and just says, hey, I just want to go overseas. I want to do my first international hunt. Where do you get direct guys most of the time? And if they don't really have anything in mind?
Kyle, that's one of the toughest questions right there, because I do get asked that, right? And if it's a younger guy in good shape and wants a hunt, then I'll suggest the mid-Asian ibex out of Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan, because those are true hunts, right? Some of them you can use horses in that, but you better be in shape, especially if you're in one of the earlier hunts where the rut and the snow hasn't pushed them down out of the high country. And that's a great experience and really affordable, right? A lot of times you can get in there for $8,000 to $12,000. Yeah, you have some travel costs, and there's some costs shipping some of that back home and that. But all in all, it's a fabulous mountain hunt and not difficult to get to. And that's the thing, flights are pretty straightforward. It seems like you can fly into Istanbul, Turkey, and from there you can go anywhere in Asia or Europe. It just makes it easy transfer. If you're maybe Glen and my age, where maybe the toughest hunts aren't quite on your list, Pakistan with the Sind, Ibex, Blanford, Uriel combination down there in the southern Pakistan is a neat hunt, right? You actually stay in the prince's guest house, which makes it nice every night to have a shower and a bed. The hunting is hunting. I put it more towards maybe mule deer hunting in Wyoming or Montana, something to that effect, that kind of difficulty. Or if you want to stay to the ibex, the Bezor in Turkey, because you can kind of pick your units with your outfitter. Some of them can be very difficult and steep and a lot of climbing in that, but then again, some of them don't have to be that way. More day hunting out of vehicles in that. Spain is a great place. They got the 4 different ibex, and they have a couple different chamois up north. The chamois hunting is fabulous there in Spain. Iberian mouflon also, and great place to take your wife. You're staying in hotels or bed and breakfasts, 4 or 5 star meals, great wine, and just super people. So there's just so much internationally. Russia with the snow sheep or the tur. I know Americans going over and hunting, Canadians that have went over and hunted in Russia, and my guy over there is begging me to come back over and do that some more. But, just kind of shied away from it last few years with what they got going on over there. There's more hunting out in the world, right? You don't have to push it. Don't push it.
Yeah, right on. Okay, well, that's really really good information, and for someone that's starting out trying to find a spot. And you mentioned chamois, so my wife has been bugging me. She wants to go and do something in Europe, so that might be the direction we might want to take her. I'm not sure. And so if you're doing a chamois hunt like Spain, France, like where I guess Spain's a little bit cheaper, I guess it depends what you want out of the hunt.
Yeah, it kind of depends what you want out of the hunt. I really liked the chamois hunts in northern Spain. They were neat, very neat terrain. We hunted three different times up there. I'm going to go back to Spain and hunt that. I've been lucky enough to take three of the four different varieties of ibex there out of Spain, so I'll probably go back at some time and do the ronda there also. Actually was in France last year with a client and he actually did four different chamois, the mainland Corsican mouflon there, and then also, and those hunts were really neat. The Vercourse, I think it was the Vercourse, was probably the neatest, and the most. I'll say, I don't want to say hunting, right? Because all of them were get out and get up on the mountain, hike around and try to find one, or glassing from the roadway and then climbing up to them. But all of them were really doable for no matter what kind of shape you are, and then afterwards, right? Just the scenery and the history and all of that was really neat. Croatia was really neat, and that was probably where we were. It wasn't as fancy of a place where we hunted at there, but still great people, very good food. Right, it's right on the coast, so the seafood was fabulous. Had a really a good time there hunting chamois too. Just a lot of options with chamois, right?
We might have to give you a call and do a consulting call with you here in the next few weeks. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Got a couple good guys over there that met and have a good relationship. Definitely, that could hook you up anywhere over there that you'd like to go.
Very cool. Okay, so Bryan, one thing I want to hit you up before we let you go is let's talk a little bit about your list. So I know you're a big supporter of GSCO. You've done a ton of their lists. I know you've knocked off the Ovis World Slam, the Capra World Slam. So what list are you working on now? You talked about your woodland caribou. So talk a little bit about what you're trying to achieve in terms of your GSCO achievements.
Well, getting to the Capra 20 there last year was really something that I wasn't pushing at, but once I got into that 15, 16, 17 range, it was like, okay, this is really doable. Because I never started out just wanting to check the boxes just to get to a number. Kind of like Glenn alluded to, this ibex is really cool, and that seems like a cool hunt. And that's kind of what I started out at. But once I got there and understood how neat those chamois hunts and some of that were, I went in and decided to complete that. But my biggest goal right now is trying to get to the North American 29. And that in itself seems to be a little more difficult, to be honest with you. So, because a lot of these hunts now are one-offs. Being from Washington State, we're lucky enough that we have, our Columbia blacktail and Roosevelt elk and Rocky Mountain elk and black bear, mountain lions. So a lot of those I can actually have done, just growing up in Washington and being a hunter, and and then hunting the Western states. Right, you can knock off a few more. Shiras moose. I won the Washington raffle here in for Shiras moose there a few years back also, and killed a pretty nice bull there at that. And then when I was on my fan and hunt up in the Yukon with Blackstone, I killed a moose with them on one of the hunts. And I actually was up there with them again here last year, hunting caribou and grizzly bear with them. and I was lucky enough to kill a really nice caribou, but the grizzly escaped us just through weather and some bad luck and this and that. So I kind of understood how difficult that hunt can be. So I got a few more off of that list that I need to get to. So, you know,
but, very cool.
Yeah, it's neat, you know, and it really does drive me. It's not just checking boxes, right? It's going right. Why am I going to go to Newfoundland, ever if I'm not going there hunting? So I'm excited about that. Why would I have went to Greenland if I wasn't going to go hunt caribou and muskox, right? It's just something, some reason to go into these places, these cultures, and be able to see some of that stuff. So I'm very blessed I have a wife that supports me in my passions that way. Oh.
You've mentioned that a couple times. I think yes. She's pretty tolerant.
She has grown. She has grown awesome, to Brian. Be more tolerant as we have grown together in life, for sure.
Well, you've done a good job of getting her on board, so well done. I'm gonna have to take some tips there too. I might call up for some counseling on that as well. So
you might need to just have him do a podcast on that.
You obviously done a great job of it. So very cool. Okay, gents, before I let you go, what's on the books for the fall? So are the tags out? Have they announced? Have they released the tags yet? Are the draws still coming out? And I guess there's some auction buyers that probably have some permits for this fall and stuff too. So anything on the books, or that stuff is all going to come out here in the next few weeks as tags get drawn and that sort of thing?
Yeah, most of it is yet to come. For us, really, some of the draw tags we can't do just because there's no commercial outfitting for that. So, I mean, we talk to a lot of hunters and give them X's on a map, but we're not out on those hunts. And then some of the state raffles will be out in mid-July. Looks like we're going to be back in Nebraska helping that guy that got that tag. That's pretty exciting. They're a father-son, great folks and great supporters of WSF. So that'll be a good one. And good to get down to Nebraska and work with Todd Nordine and the great sheep program down there as well and support them. So yeah, our calendars, stateside is yet to be filled up. So we'll see how that goes. Probably in another month and a half, I guess. So we do a lot of, we'll do a lot of legwork ahead of time, not knowing whether we're going to have a hunt or not, but just so that we're.
Does that impact your plans for the fall at all, Glenn? Like obviously you're teaching and stuff like that, but does that have any bearing on any of the hunts that you plan for yourself?
My teaching, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing about like Pakistan that, I can do that over my Christmas break, or that's the plan. If it doesn't get worked out for late December, early January, then I might roll it to my spring break. And that's why for me, the, not just the location in the mountains of northern Canada for thin horns, but, those seasons open August 1, so I can go up and not worry about having to get back. I mean, I tried to do that a couple years ago and sneak up and get a brown bear on the peninsula, on a short agenda, and it didn't work out. And you just got to get lucky. And to be honest, that makes it not a very enjoyable hunt. Not because the hunt's not good, but when you're like, you have a short window and everything has to line up, gets pretty stressful and takes the fun out of it. But yeah, so I have kind of a funky calendar that I got to go by. And, of course, some days for WSF commitments as well. So as that starts to wind down for me, that'll probably free up. I haven't been able to do much hunting for myself since I've been on the board, just because, I have only so many days off. So that's why I tell everybody, if I did any less hunting, you'd think I was a vegan, but I'm ready to get after it. I mean,
awesome.
Don't feel too sorry for me. I've been on some great hunts, but yeah. We don't have any good stories. One last
Oh, I
story,
don't
Bailey.
think
What do you
so,
got?
Glenn. I'm
Anything
not the
good you want to tell
storyteller. You're
Stelter?
the
We got to.
storyteller.
There's got to be something, Brian.
But I tell you,
No.
you alluded, Glenn, of walking up on a Altar Garley, and just for years you've seen pictures of them and biggest sheep of the world, but I will never forget that day, that moment when I walked up on that client, really a good client of ours. But he killed the Altai that he killed was 59 by 58 and a half and 22-inch bases. I mean, it was a giant ram, and it was just awe inspiring just to try to pick those horns up. What a neat, super neat experience.
Yeah, I'd have to go back to, and I've told a little bit of this story on one of the podcasts with you, Kyle, is when we were chasing what turned out to be our state record ram a few years ago. And I had lots of, footage of him on the winter range, etc. And then Brian and I happened to be together when Brian spotted some sheep, and I put the spotting scope on them, and they were kind of acting weird. And then it was a rut, it was early November, and then the ram we were looking for, pushed these ewes kind of through a saddle towards us. I mean, just like he was herding cows. And I'm like, oh my God, that's him. That's him. That's our ram. And we were, so then we get another spot and scope out, and Brian and I were just both shaking. I mean, just literally, like, I don't know how many days we were into it at that point, and we didn't kill him for, I think, 15 more days or 13 more days is the way hunting goes. But, we had a lot invested, Brian and I, and we had some teammates that came in there and helped us as well, but we were 15 months in at that point right there, and to see that, and I mean, I'll never forget. I know Brian won't, and Andy won't, and Wayne won't, that were helping us on that hunt, and Gary Guerreri, but walking up on a 202-inch official net Rocky Mountain Bighorn, there was a lot of emotions that came out at that point. And I'll close, at least unless you have something else, but I'll close with this, Kyle, because you talked about chasing numbers with guys, and we knew that was an incredibly special ram, and so did our hunter. And let's see, he probably tipped that over at maybe 10 in the morning or something. And it was back, I was having my house built, so I was in an apartment, and so we didn't put a tape on it until like 1 a.m.
Wow.
And it was pretty fun. It happened to be my 50th birthday, so the hunter, of course, was dying to get a tape on it, and he's like, I told him, I said, hey, we'll let you either get to measure one base or one length, and that's it. That's what we told him. It's sitting on the counter of the apartment. It's just this monster ram, 40,
Yeah,
exactly. Brian, 45 by 17 and a quarter or something. And I don't remember what he chose, but it was my birthday, so he said you get he wanted a length, and I chose the short side, which the short side was still over 44. But anyway, that's one of the things for us is I can't think of a ram, Brian, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we put a tape on a ram in the field. There's a time for that, even chasing giant rams, but we really have a lot of respect, and we've been on the ones where the tape comes out and everybody's disappointed, and it's almost disrespectful to the animal that we just took. And we don't carry them. Let's enjoy it. Everybody's worked hard, and to make the hunt happen, us, we always tell our clients, like, if it wasn't for our clients, we're just photographers. Everybody's invested something, time, money, talent, whatever, to get to that point.
Awesome message, Glenn. That's a great way to finish it out.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts from you, Brian?
I don't see how I could say it any better than what Glenn just said it right there. Absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah. Awesome, gentlemen. Thank you both for your time today, for chatting wild sheep, for talking conservation, for talking about international hunting, and can't wait to see what the next few years brings for both you gentlemen and Bailey and Landrus. Appreciate you both.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Cal, for the opportunity, and thank you, Wild Sheep Society of BC, for all you do.